am Miranda March, and I am the co-director for the Pacific Southwest Mental Health Technology Transfer Center. So we are here today to do session 3 of our Rising Practices and Policies series. So we did the same series last year, and we identified these four areas of emerging priorities. And this is for you to sort of orient yourself in terms of the kinds of questions that we're asking today. So we're really trying to think about the stigma that accompanies homelessness and foster care and how we can create more equitable access to mental health services. We're thinking about, for the school mental health folks, the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act and how we can use that and other kinds of state and federal funding to support vulnerable young people and families. We're thinking about how we can collaborate across systems, who else we need to bring into this conversation to provide wraparound supports, and thinking about how therapists, peer specialists, social workers, all the folks that are on this call can really better serve this population with cultural humility and cultural responsiveness. All right, so as I've been promising, there are amazing presenters today. So I'm going to pass this over to Evelyn Clark, who is our moderator.
And today you're going to listen to these fabulous leaders throughout the country in the Pacific Islands to really share strategies and models of supporting unhoused youth and families. So a bit of the conversation today will center on how school and community-based mental health partners are utilizing and navigating the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act and other federal funding sources to maximize the workforce support. We are so proud to have a well-rounded group of providers in this field today. From Guam to Washington State, Nevada, and California. These leaders have effective and innovative models of service and expertise.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Klaus. Thank you, Evelyn, for the introduction. I really appreciate it, and thanks for having me. I'm really excited that so many of you have joined us today to learn more about how we help houseless youth and families in navigating the complex systems that they face on a daily basis. I am the executive director and founder of CARE, which stands for the Collaborative Association for Reintegration and Education. So I'm also a certified peer counselor with CARE, and our primary program that we offer is what we refer to as the CARE Collaboration Program. Some other programs that we offer are mutual aid, which is our outreach program, and we provide weekly outreach to the encampments here around Thurston County. And we also have some youth-led initiatives that I'm really excited to dive into with you. Our mission here at CARE is to address all forms of discrimination against those who have been incarcerated or detained, with a primary focus on youth and families that have been involved in the justice system. Our work is rooted in empathy and advocacy, primarily through, like I mentioned, our peer counseling services to help young adults navigate the unique journeys that they face. But beyond peer counseling, there are a few other initiatives that we'll get into today. Next slide, please. But just to touch on a few things that are on this slide that I haven't mentioned yet, we do have a youth and young adult advisory board and a YPAR project that we recently wrapped up, which is Youth Participatory Action Research. We also participate in policy advocacy and harm reduction education, which I will get into here pretty shortly. So first, I'll dive into our peer counseling program, which is for justice-impacted youth between ages 10 and 25. And we call this our CARE Collaboration Program. We provide wraparound services in this program, which means that not only do we support the youth or young adult that is our primary peer, we also support their family through referrals out to other programs that their family members would also be eligible for. So our CARE Collaboration Program develops and implements peer counseling through collaborative solutions and strategies to overcome the hurdles that youth and families face when they're involved in these systems. The peer approach has proven to be extremely successful in our program, as we have housed every single youth in our program this year, and we're currently in the process of contracting to operate a home. We would be the service provider for this house, and it would have a capacity of 6 youth, and that's right here in Olympia, Washington, where we are located. We believe it's crucial to expand the reach and effectiveness of our services through referring out when we can. And that means that if we don't have lawyers working for our organization, we can refer out to a team of legal services and lawyers that we contract with. One of the partnerships we have is with a group called LCYC, which stands for Legal Counsel for Youth and Children, and they offer pro bono services for anybody under 25. So to save on the expensive costs of legal services, we actually are able to refer out. We also have therapists and social workers that offer pro bono services to our youth. We really believe that these efforts should also extend into the educational and juvenile rehabilitation systems as well, which is something that we're still working on, as we've started with helping houseless youth, because we focus on the intersection of incarceration and homelessness, because we really believe that that's a great place to start. But we are getting ready now that we're getting staffed up. We're getting ready to partner with schools, and we are connected now with the JR system, which is juvenile rehabilitation through the state, to support youth coming out of jails and juvenile prisons around our area. So let's shift our focus. We're going to talk a little bit about the youth-led initiatives. So I'm really excited about this part. We believe that our promising approach involves, like I've been saying, the implementation of youth-led initiatives. And the primary initiative we have is our Youth and Young Adult Advisory Board. So we do this because we really, truly advocate for giving houseless youth a voice and a platform to share their experiences. And we can empower youth to make through making interventions that actually target their peers. So without having that active youth voice, we don't think that we're really addressing root causes, because as adults, we might be peer counselors because we have lived experiences that are similar, but the youth that are currently in this experience, we truly believe that they can lead the way. So we've established a youth advisory board. And here on the screen, what you're seeing is a quote that actually was written by our youth advisory board and is in the beginning of their bylaws that they recently finished. And below, you see a photo of me with our youth advisory board over on the left. We currently have 4 members, and this picture was taken before our 4th member joined. And then in the middle, that's a photo of me and 2 of our board of directors, our board members on our board of directors, and then one of our youth advisory board participants, the day that we were interviewed to be in the newspaper. So that was a really exciting day for our youth advisory board member who got to participate. And then over on the right-hand side, here in Olympia, we have what we call the free wall, which is a designated wall for graffiti artists to practice their art without getting in trouble. So we take the youth board there frequently because it's a really good outlet for them. So another program I'm really, really excited about. This is actually one of my favorite components of what CARE does. We have a youth recreation program, and this is led by the youth advisory board. So they get to choose what activities they do, and we make it happen for them. We've taken them to Mariners games. The photo in the middle is our movie night in the park, which we do every summer. And last summer we watched A Bug's Life and set up a bunch of little fairy lights in the park. I made little popcorn boxes and snack bags for them. Sodas, everything you would get if you go to a movie theater, we had it. And we set up a projector and watched a movie, and it was really, really cool. And then on the right-hand side, you see a DIY rage room birthday party that we did, because we had one youth that really wanted to go to a rage room. She thought that it would really let out some of those emotions that were building up for a long time, but we couldn't find a rage room that would accept the large group that she wanted for her party. So we decided to just do it on our own. We found a parking lot and got permission to smash a bunch of things And it was actually really, really fun. So these are kind of some examples of what we can do with our recreation program. And the quote on the screen is the Youth Advisory Board's perspective of why these events are healthy for them. And I'm not going to read the quote just in the interest of time, so we can move on to the next slide. This was our YPAR project, which is Youth Participatory Action Research. And for those who don't know, this is a type of research that really empowers youth, or if it's not a youth-led, like there's also participatory action research without the youth in the front of it, but it's basically whoever is the subject of the research, they get to lead the project on their own. And this is because there's a power imbalance in a lot of cases with research projects where there's the researcher up top and then whoever's being researched, and they have to do whatever the research project says they need to do. However, this one is completely constructed, developed, and implemented by the youth themselves. So the topic for this project was the prevention of tobacco and vaping for youth and young adults. And we put together a research team, and they decided to do what's called a photo voice project. And if you haven't heard of photo voice, it's a data collection method that actually allows us to envision the topic we're trying to study through the eyes of the people conducting the project. So on the left-hand side, you see a photo that one of our youth took for the project and submitted. And I'm going to read the caption that they sent with it that explains what it means to them. It says, vaping, as we've stated, can have negative consequences on the body. The youth in this photo is trying to show that they want to crush those effects and overcome the addiction of nicotine. Them taking the next stepping stone and crushing their appeal to the color and flavor that pull in most youth trying to adapt to today's common approach to nicotine addiction. So this was a caption that was submitted. And then we have a facilitator, which is myself, kind of helping them adjust the things they submit for the presentation that we will be giving in August, or actually, sorry, September 1st. We're going to have a presentation, and the Youth Participatory Action Research team has decided they want to go big. So we're going to present this to state officials, county officials, city officials, and school board members, as well as our nonprofit community partners. And then on the right-hand side, we have a photo that was taken by our youngest research participant, who is 10 years old. And again, in the interest of time, I won't read the caption here, but it has to do with recreation and, in her case, stuffed animals being part of what can be preventative efforts, because having coping items can really help with preventative efforts for this topic. So our mutual aid program is our weekly outreach program, and we provide basic needs and harm reduction supplies to houseless folks living in encampments around Thurston County. Our mutual aid program plays a critical role in supporting this community, particularly in these encampments where we do identify folks who lie at the intersection of houselessness and the justice system. So this is one way that we get most of our referrals, is through going to the camps, building trust with people, and really learning what their stories are. And we don't ask or prompt for the information about being justice involved when we're out here in the camps. We just build the trust and allow them to share their story at their own pace while we're providing supplies for them. So in the pictures here, you see some of the items that we have distributed. On the bottom left is our team participating in a food drive to gather supplies needed for the outreach programs. And then on the right-hand side, you see me distributing a water bottle to actually one of my family members who lives in the camp, which really highlights the deeply rooted passion that I have for this issue, because I've experienced firsthand what it's like to have a family member who is living in this experience. The values that you can see over on the left, we actually train our volunteers before they go out on trauma-informed care, harm reduction, active listening, and de-escalation. The last section I'm going to run through with you is how we use policy advocacy and communication, or sorry, community education to combat the effects of discrimination and stigmatization that this population faces. The unfortunate reality is that due to misconceptions and fear, a lot of the community doesn't accept these youth, and that's part of why we are so focused on reintegration with CARE, because I was actually told, just as a quick piece of background, CARE was going to be called Collaborative Association for Rehabilitation and Education, but we replaced the R with the word reintegration. And that's because I was taught by one of my advisors that the word rehabilitation actually connotates a negative, or sorry, it has a negative connotation because it insinuates that the onus of getting better is on the individual themselves, rather than the word reintegration, which kind of puts that onus back on the community. We need to open up doors for these people. It's a community-wide effort. By reintegrating, focusing on reintegration, it allows us to envision a society in which the community is opening doors for these people. But by focusing on rehabilitation, it kind of focuses on the individual themselves and their need to get better. And it's like, you need to do something yourself. But we want to flip that, and we want to also implement that when we're educating people in our community. So we go to a lot of policy advocacy workshops. Recently, there was a legislative advocacy day, which took place at the Capitol, and I took a couple of our youth board members to that event where they got to learn about bills that were currently in legislative session. And it was really, really fun. So
Awesome. Thank you so much, Emily, for all of the work that you're doing. As a certified peer counselor myself, it definitely means a lot to me. All right, so next we are going to hear from Samantha, and we will hear about the wonderful work she's doing in Guam.
Thank you so much. And Hafa from Guam. It is 8:30 in the morning on Tuesday. So I'm just so happy to be here. So thank you to MHTTC for having me, and then for everyone who is here to listen and learn more about what everyone's doing. It was already great to hear what Emily is doing over there in Washington. As it says on the slide, I am Samantha Taitano, and I am the chairwoman of the Guam Homeless Coalition, which is Guam's continuum of care. I am also the executive director of the nonprofit organization Menyetlu, which is an organization that empowers and educates children and families facing adversity to change their lives for the better. And so I was actually first introduced to the Guam Homeless Coalition about 5 years ago through my organization, as we are a part of the Guam Homeless Coalition. So today I am going to be sharing with you all a really macro perspective of working with youth and families here on Guam that are experiencing homelessness and home insecurity. So to start, I would really like to just share a little bit about this beautiful island here. We are a US territory, a small island in the Pacific Ocean, about 30 miles long and 9 miles wide. So Guam is pretty isolated from the US, the rest of the mainland US, as we are about 3,945 miles away from Hawaii, which is about a 7-hour flight. We're a little bit closer to Asia, so about 3 hours from the Philippines and 5 hours from Japan. And we have a population of 153,836, according to the 2020 census. Guam is a diverse melting pot, not only being home for our indigenous peoples, the Chamorros, but being in such close proximity, as I mentioned, to Asia. We have a lot of Filipinos, Japanese, Chinese, and Koreans that have made Guam their home. We also have a large military community here with 2 branches of services that have large installations at either end of the island, and a 3rd branch of service that is currently building an installation with plans to relocate more than 3,500 Marines from Okinawa. Very much like Hawaii, Guam is seeing the cost of housing soar due to landlords catering to military renters, making affordable housing few and far between. So additionally, Guam has a large population of Compactor Free Association migrants from the Republic of Palau, the Republic of the Marshall Islands, and most especially the Federated States of Micronesia. And so for those of you who don't know, the Compactor Free Association is a series of bilateral treaties that have granted citizens from the freely associated states a unique status as legal non-immigrants who may work and live in the US indefinitely without a visa. So many COFA migrants travel to Guam, which is the closest point of entry to the US, looking for better opportunities and a better life, but are met with a high cost of living because everything has to be imported, a lack of affordable housing inventory, and among other barriers, cultural and language impediments. So I hope that paints a bit of the landscape that we have here. And again, sorry about the power outage. But now I just kind of want to talk a little bit about the Guam Homeless Coalition. So we're a nonprofit organization that is made up of around 30 member organizations. That's comprised of nonprofits, government agencies, and private businesses that have really just come together to address and eventually end homelessness here on Guam. And so the organization has no staff and is really a labor of love for many of its members, but has been active in the community, developing partnerships that increase access to services, building awareness of the complexity of issues surrounding homelessness, and conducting small and large-scale outreaches. Being Guam's continuum of care, the largest outreach we conduct annually is the point-in-time count. And in 2022, the PIT count showed us that there were 756 unhoused individuals on Guam, 374 were under 18 years old, 81 under 24 years old. That really means that we're seeing about 60% of our unhoused population are youth. Our 2023 PIT counts, our numbers are still unverified. We're waiting to get those back from HUD, but they do already show an increase of about 250 individuals experiencing homelessness here on Guam. So with these numbers, the coalition has a really heavy focus in assisting families and youth become housed. So now I want to just share a little bit about some of the coalition's efforts. So Guam, like many other island communities and small towns, has a really family-oriented culture that takes care of its own. But through increased westernization of the island, increased substance abuse, and untreated mental health conditions, many have seen fractures within families that challenge the idea of taking care of your own, leading to a lot of shame in being unhoused and also not being able to help family members who are unhoused. Just earlier this year, we had an elected official publicly make a call of action to family members to come down to a homeless encampment that was scheduled to be disbanded and pick up their family members. With comments like this and the idea of homelessness happening at home, the coalition is really working towards building community awareness through a cultural lens. So keeping in mind cultural factors that really contribute to the stigma of not only being unhoused, but also mental health issues. The Guam Homeless Coalition is working towards this destigmatization of being unhoused by building awareness of how people become unhoused and what supports are there to assist them. Over the past 3 years, we have had a member film a documentary that shared people's stories from being housed to unhoused and housed again. We partnered with a local influencer on a 24-hour run walk that not only raised funds for the coalition, but really highlighted different facts about being unhoused here on Guam. And we are currently working on developing short videos that share information about services to help organizations connect with the community and landlords to really destigmatize renting to families who are unhoused. These videos are not only going to help with the destigmatization of homelessness, but they additionally assist us in increasing access to services and support by reaching a broader audience. So with Guam's diverse makeup and a large population migrating from the Federated States of Micronesia, which is part of that COFA community I talked about earlier, the coalition has found a lot of success in working with Minyetlu, which is the organization that I'm the director for, and our project, the Micronesian Resource Center One-Stop Shop. The Micronesian Resource Center One-Stop Shop provides culturally and linguistically appropriate services to those migrants who are coming from the freely associated states, and has really become a model for connecting with underserved populations, including our unhoused population. And they do this through a multilingual team that goes out and is able to provide assistance in their home language And really with that cultural lens in mind of understanding sort of some of the stigma that prevents people from wanting to receive services. They also have a mobile office that goes around. So although Guam is only 30 miles long and 9 miles wide, we lack adequate public transportation. And really the heat, humidity, and unpredictable weather here make it unrealistic for people to walk to and from work. Which is an additional barrier. So really having mobile units kind of going out into the different pocket areas kind of really assists in increasing that access. The coalition additionally hosts 2 large outreaches a year that connect youth and families to services and resources, and providing transportation to and from these events is an important part of making them successful. With that kind of, we always know that collaboration is going to be key. So our large outreaches we hold, they not only take a lot of time, but they take a lot of collaboration with all of the partner agencies that we have. With many clients needing multiple services, working together based on each organization's expertise really helps the process. Some of the most impactful collaborations that we've had through, I want to say, the past 3 or 4 years have really been with the government agencies. So one of the partnerships is with several government agencies that really assist individuals that are experiencing homelessness to receive Guam IDs, which we know is always going to be a huge thing, being able to get an ID. And then another is actually with our regional transit system, which provides free but very limited point-to-point transportation for people experiencing homelessness, and has been used by our clients to travel to and from appointments, school, and work. We also, talking about collaboration, we also held our first housing and homelessness summit last year to bring our service providers, stakeholders, and those with lived experience together to talk about the challenges and barriers and the gaps when it comes to being at risk of or experiencing homelessness. So out of those discussions, we really worked to develop an action framework to help us not only identify how to address these challenges and barriers, but to also measure our progress. So through this action framework, we are all looking at a lot of the contributing factors that lead to homelessness, such as domestic violence, substance abuse, and again, untreated mental health conditions. We are really fortunate to have member organizations that address these factors as part of the coalition. And we really operate off of a no wrong door approach, ensuring that clients are connected with the services that they need. So in conclusion, I would really like to leave you with these 3 things that I believe will help providers adapt services to ensure effective responsiveness. Understand the diverse makeup of your community and the different cultural factors that can contribute to stigma. Create safety and being able to talk about difficult topics. For us, that safety is really being able to have service providers that are multicultural and multilingual and are able to kind of bring that comfort into talking about these things.
So thank you so much, Samantha, for joining us. And next we have Hannah. So Hannah, will you please share about what you do?
What is McKinney-Vento and what does it cover? So McKinney-Vento is the educational rights and protections established in 1987 for children and youth experiencing houselessness. This law provides for immediate enrollment for an educational stability for children identified as houseless. Students will qualify if they don't have adequate fixed nighttime housing. So this does include children who are sharing housing with others due to economic hardship. So that's called doubled up housing. And this could be children that are living with other family members due to economic hardship, but it doesn't necessarily include generational housing. It's more if they lost housing. So the act also covers our unaccompanied youth. So this is anybody under the age of 18 that has been forced out of their home or they've been abandoned by their parents. This is typically kids that are in high school and they're not in physical custody of their guardian. So students in transition, their SIT status will remain for the duration of the school year. So even if we register them as McKinney-Vento in September and their family secures housing in December, they will remain McKinney-Vento for the entirety of the school year. Students do have to reapply every single school year. So if they try to apply again and they do have housing, they will qualify. This year we had 286 McKinney-Vento students and 70 foster care students in our school district. So our school district is using MTSS, so that's a multi-tiered system which supports for all students. So tier 1 is just the general student population, so that would cover all of our students, elementary, middle school, high school, things like that. And then tier 2 would be group work with social workers. So this can include McKinney-Vento students. It's typically like social and emotional learning groups. And then tier 3 is individual check-ins. So once students reach this point, they can be referred out to Project Aware, which is like basically therapy in schools. And they'll be connected with a mental health counselor that will come to the school and work with them. And we have a Project Aware that we work with as well. So McKinney-Vento students have regular check-ins with our school counselor, and if they do qualify for those services, we'll get them set up via the MTSS protocol. So they help us basically understand what the students' needs are, if they do need mental health services, or if they just need their basic needs met, if they need clothing, gift cards, outside resources, food banks, rental assistance. We can also assist with academic tracking. So how does McKinney-Vento increase access to school services and support? So we make sure everybody has equal access and equal opportunity. So in addition to the clothing and school supplies, we offer our students grocery gift cards, laundry vouchers, bus passes, cab services, gas cards, basically any need that is within reason. We do our very best via our donation account to get those students those needs. We offer weekly food bags through Food for Thought. So kids go home with food bags that are McKinney-Vento every Friday. We work with, we offer cab services as well. So we can take students to IEP meetings, we take families to IEP meetings, conferences, or medical appointments if they need it. We connect families to outside agencies as well. We will work with another organization, St. Vincent's, and they have a $300 assistance program that can be used one time. So families can get utility, gas, or motel assistance. We utilize the fish shelter. We have food delivery services set up with Ron Wood, and then also case management services through our Health and Human Services Center. And then we offer, so we work with an organization also called Spirit of Hope Housing. So this organization, we can basically put our unaccompanied youth in a community living situation, and we will cover them. So that's students that are 17 or 18 years old. They're on their way to graduating. And they've been kicked out of their home, or they're runaways and they need a safe haven. So our program will cover the cost of that rent. Foster care. So monthly foster care updates are sent to me through DCFS. So these lists are super important. It's good for me to be in constant contact with the social workers just to ensure the safety of our students, make sure everything is up to date in our systems as well. And that I have those placement letters so we know where our students are, who is allowed to pick up and drop off these students, and that our Infinite Campus system is also up to date. So in addition to Spirit of Hope Housing, we also do offer rental assistance for youth that are 18 years old and they are living on their own. We set up agreements with these students where we do help them until they graduate, and we can help them with rent if they have a place, or if they are living with somebody else, we can support them. And then our donation account, I kind of briefly touched on. So our program does have a large donation account. We're able to use these funds for items that we can't necessarily use through the grant. So through the grant, we can buy food, gift cards, gas cards, anything like that, or the rental assistance. So this donation account helps us connect with our families and then connect with the community as well, because they know our needs, and we use media, news outlets, and all of our resources are listed on our school website. So if a family doesn't want to come talk to me, or they don't reach out to the school, everything is listed in one place. We have mental health resources, food banks, everything like that. So they can hopefully find everything that they need on the website. And if they can't, they can always reach out to me or the school. Our program also does academic checks. So we use Google Classrooms, where we connect with all of the McKinney-Vento students' homeroom teachers. So this creates an open line of communication, and then I can communicate with them directly about academic needs or needs that they just might come up throughout the school year. So the teachers are the ones who see them every single day. I don't get to see them every day, and it's good to have that open line of communication. And then quarterly, we send out those surveys just so we can find out what those concerns are and make sure that needs are being met. We also fund after school tutoring programs. So we have one set up right now at the middle school, and that's just specifically for McKinney-Vento students. So that's just to make sure that they're passing their classes and they are going on to high school. And then also each year we offer the opportunity scholarship to our seniors. So seniors that are going to college, they can fill out this survey right here. It's just really brief, just about their hopes and their dreams for the future. And we give them a $2,000 check that they can access once they enroll in school. And then we also set them up with a laptop for the recommendations and takeaways. So community collaboration and community promotion are super crucial. So this summer we're conducting a gift card drive for all of our students. So I went on a local news station a couple weeks, I guess it was last week, and we just broadcast what we needed. And so far we've gotten $500 in gift cards and then over 10,000 in monetary donations. So the community here just really wants to help, and it's been super amazing just having that support. We also did a coat drive in December. That was our first one. It was live music, and then we had like a raffle and hot chocolate, and we got over 100 new coats for our students. And then we also regularly attend our behavioral task force meetings with the Carson City Health and Human Services, and then all of those community resources come together. We just kind of see what our needs are. The donations account really helps us have a robust program. So just getting those needs out into the community makes such a difference for us. And it offsets the other costs. So it really helps make sure that these kids can get their basic needs met, and then mental health services, and then academic support as well. So we've had district-wide campaigns as well, and we're going to have a backpack drive, and then media outlets just really help us get the word out. So we were also able to purchase a McKinney-Vento van, which has been huge because I was driving around and delivering donations and picking up bikes and all of these different things in my 2013 Jetta. So we got to get a really nice van, and it has been a lifesaver. And lastly, our office registrars, school social workers, counselors, and teachers, they're crucial in supporting our McKinney-Vento students. They are the ones who are at the front lines. So it's super important that we do annual trainings and we remind them of changes that are coming up. If we have an SRQ form, so that's our student residency questionnaire, and just making sure that they're sending those to the appropriate place, that students and families are filling them out completely so that we can best serve them.
Amazing, Hannah. Thank you. I love the innovative ways you all are supporting young people. Thank you. Next, we have Melita. If you want to introduce yourself and the work you are doing, that would be wonderful.
My name is Alida Sanchez. I work for the Orange County Department of Education. Primary role is to provide technical assistance, supports, and guidance for folks just like Hannah that are McKinney-Vento liaisons in Orange County. We have just so many different opportunities to partner with community agencies just like Hannah provided. I mean, what a wonderful, robust program that encompasses everything to remove educational barriers for McKinney-Vento students. I did have some statistics to share, but I will be brief due to the essence of the time. We do have in Orange County approximately 24,000 students experiencing homelessness. 90% approximately are doubled up, tripled up, sharing housing with others. Since the pandemic, we've actually had around 4% be placed in shelters. And then we have another 4% around experiencing homelessness and staying in motels and hotels. And then the rest are on shelter. Due to the pandemic, we had a significant number of students that left our Orange County districts because it's very expensive to be staying in Orange County, and a lot of local districts experience a loss of students. Orange County Department of Education, like I mentioned, has a program called Hopes Collaborative. It's a Homeless Outreach Promoting Educational Success Collaborative. And in this collaborative, we build partnerships between the Department of Ed and other school districts, the liaisons, community school-based organizations, faith-based organizations, law enforcement, shelter, and housing service providers. All in all, ultimately, we'd like to provide the anything that the student needs to ensure their academic success and make sure that they graduate and go on to college. This actually, if you can go back to the previous slide, I have this systems of support is an intra and inter-district collaboration. So in your district, you have the ability to collaborate, just like Hannah mentioned, with folks that are internal to your district and agency. One of the ones that I want to point out is the categorical and state federal program funding. You have LCAP funding. Recently, we received American Rescue Plan funds because of COVID, but the McKinney-Vento Act is a unfunded mandate. That means that your district would have to qualify by applying for the grant that Hannah was referring to, and you may or may not get the funding, but you still have to train your staff, you still have to identify the students, and you still have to render services to remove educational barriers. And so I just wanted to point out that there is a system of support, the family and the student at the center, and then you have the rest of the entities that can really support that. In addition to that, whether you have the funding or not, professional development and tools should be provided. And my role, in addition to provide the technical assistance and support, is to represent the McKinney-Vento education component in the continuum of care. Just like Emily at the beginning of her presentation, she talked about advocacy. Local advocacy is crucial to be able to support coordinated and comprehensive regional implementation strategies to address homelessness, and that also includes McKinney-Vento. For the most part, service providers and community groups come into the continuum of care to either seek funding and also to talk about the services they offer. And so that becomes a wraparound for some of the families that are experiencing housingless, depending on where they are. A lot of the McKinney-Vento students do not qualify for housing supports because they are not considered homeless per HUD definition. The Housing Authority does not recognize doubled up, tripled up, because there's a roof over their head, and that becomes incredibly hard for liaisons, and they have to be as creative as Hannah to be able to have funding sources that will cover rental assistance. And she's doing a fantastic job tapping into those resources and creating opportunity for families and students. And so these partnerships, like I mentioned earlier, it's critical to be able to find within the area, map out per district, what are the medical offices, what are some of the clinics, so that they are able to participate in the educational opportunity that's afforded to all students. Also, food pantries and distributions. I think it's become a focal point of communities to highlight that there's food distribution, or they have hygiene kits or basic necessities given out to students in need. One of the number one requests by district liaisons is transportation. It is incredibly hard to put out a resource, and if the family does not have transportation to pick up those resources and go from and to school, then it's almost you keep giving resources without completing a true referral. One of the other parts that should be highlighted, it's not only K-12, it's also Child Care, Head Start, and preschool. The number one population, at least for Orange County, of families experiencing homelessness is a single mother with children, multiple children and a mother, and finding placement for that with a very low income is incredibly hard. And so part of the tools and the professional development opportunities that I think would wrap the entire presentation to remove the stigma and build that advocacy is education, training your counselors, your school social workers, know the law, know the signs, and know how to help. Where are the resources? How can you tap into that? One of the tools that we created, and just all these resources are in our Orange County Department of Education Hopes Collaborative website, and everybody can access them. They're created, and you can download them in PDF form. You can share them with anyone. There are videos that we're creating, very brief, 20 minutes for educators, and then 5 minutes for community partners. And then we're going to have another one for families and students so that they know their rights and how they can, and the importance of the McKinney-Vento Act and how that's going to further their education. So I was referring to the MI McKinney-Vento support and services often because of the stigma. We are here to discuss mental health and how we can support them. But a lot of the students and families that are experiencing homelessness don't understand what it means to be McKinney-Vento. They don't understand the terminology and why it's important. And so the document that talks about your eligibility, it's very important to mention that it's based on housing and overnight residency. It's not about how much do you pay for rent. It's not Section 8. There's so many titles that can create things, confusion within the community. And more importantly, being able to understand if there is a large migrant population. Many of them don't want to tap into the resources because they feel that they will be deported, or there's, lack of communication and clarity that these services are. It's the law to support and remove the barriers that the family and the student are facing. The other one that's very much asked about is, what are the rights? We have a brochure on our website that talks about what are the important key points that families and students need to know. Sometimes things are created with the law, and the legal language can be very overwhelming for a lot of the families. So simplifying is key when working with families. That will definitely help minimize the confusion, and will also allow families to identify what are the best services that will help them maximize whatever service that they're trying to get. When you build the relationships within walking distance, or you provide transportation, or you offer mental health services within the school, it is easier for them to access those services, and that reduces the barriers to student engagement. I think part of the stigma with mental health services and homelessness is the security aspect of it. Is how do we ensure that you allow the student and the family to pick what service they want. One of the key points that I always advise McKinney-Vento liaisons is to allow the families to tell you what they need, not just send a extensive list of opportunities that become so overwhelming for them to say, I rather just disqualify me. There are limits to a lot of services, and if you don't highlight that at the beginning of the service or the referral, then people misunderstand that. When we're talking about unaccompanied minors, sometimes they have to have a parent sign a waiver. Those are very key opportunities for you to just come back and say, am I creating more barriers? Am I creating limits? Am I really being aware of what's being published and what's being shared? So those are just some keys. I know because of the time, I don't want to go forward, but I will also stay. So if there's any questions about collaboration and how advocacy with the continuum of care and local opportunities of policy, I can definitely answer that as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for all the work you're doing. It's awesome to hear all of the, community to your role, Lida, around how you're supporting them. And you said something that was key that I think can take us into our panel discussion, just around how, you said we need to listen to what they need, right? We need to listen to youth and families. So often, I know when I was in direct services, I often felt like, oh, okay, let me get you this, but we need to take the time to hear what they need. They are the driver of their own care. So thank you. I'm going to start us off today, and whoever feels prompted to go first, please do so. We heard a lot about a lot of the stigma that young people and their families face when they are unhoused. And so the question is, how can we interrupt the stigma of homelessness and foster care and equitable access to mental health services? As we know that mental health plays a big role in young people.
I just want to kind of briefly tell the story about a peer who was in our program, who made the really brave decision to seek out mental health services, which I know is very, very hard, especially for people with trauma. It's really hard for them to even want to access the services because it's so scary. So we held a spring gala, a really big fundraising dinner a few months ago. And one of the speakers at our gala was the CEO of the local behavioral hospital that we have here in Olympia. And the youth that was contemplating going to seek out care, he heard the CEO speak about access to services for justice impacted youth, because that was the topic of his speech. So this young person felt comfortable after, listening to that and then talking to me about his situation a little bit more, and he decided to go. I decided to go with him to accompany him throughout the process, and they told him that actually the receptionist pulled us outside to try and foster a private environment, but there were other people outside as well. And she was like, "We can't admit you. You're a sex offender," for something that, like a juvenile thing that happened. Won't get into details, but it was very sad that he was treated that way in front of other people, and the other people chimed in and started ridiculing him. And after making such a hard decision, he just immediately was inconsolable. He started crying. I couldn't help him calm down. I started crying. I'm the one who's supposed to maintain my composure, but it broke my heart. And he was like, "I'm not worth anything. Like, I shouldn't even have tried this. I'm not worth anything." Well, luckily, in terms of how can we advocate and get and help improve access, I had the CEO's phone number because he had just presented at our spring gala. So I called him up. I got a hold of his secretary, and she came right down and came outside and met with us, decided to try and help us get a referral. And long story short, he never ended up in a place, not because of his charge, but because he also has physical health issues that make it hard for some hospitals to accommodate him. So we got denied because of both of those things, his justice involvement and his medical issues. So that is kind of a testament to the barriers that are faced. It's not just what we've done in our past, but it's also the medical issues we face, and that's not right. So to try and alleviate this, I'm talking with the CEO now actually about arranging a time to meet to discuss these barriers and actually go to the city, because apparently it's the city's regulation on the previous charges. And I think we need to figure out as leaders how we can advocate and pull the right levers to get to the people who have made the rules and ask them why these rules are in place if they do discriminate against folks who are trying to access the services. And I think that's one way we can go about it, is by providing really strong advocacy and not accepting no for an answer, but getting to the root of the actual problem or regulation.
And so we've recently updated our student residency questionnaires, just from questionnaires that we were receiving last semester. So students get to list their shoe size, clothing size, anything that they basically need, but we didn't really have a description for like what style of clothing that they would like. So we've added a descriptor for the types of clothing that they want, just so that they can have anything that they need for the first day of school. So it's on a smaller scale, but
having a really diverse community, it does mean that we do see some racial biases. And so that's sort of also why we do have a lot of multilingual and multicultural staff. And so that's not just only in Minyetlu, the organization I'm with. We're starting to see that more in a lot of the other organizations, not just nonprofits, but in government agencies. And it really is to sort of kind of help with those barriers of those biases that we're seeing within the community. And again, it's always kind of building that awareness. We actually, I mean, it's not necessarily a campaign that has to deal with our unhoused community, but we are trying to kind of break the stigma of being Micronesian. So Guam is in Micronesia, but it's also in the Marianas Islands. And so we, when people use the word Micronesian here, they usually use it as a negative kind of word. And so we're trying to kind of overcome that stigma as well, which a lot of our unhoused population that are coming from the freely associated stage are experiencing. And so being able to have our staff go to some of the places like, for example, the government agency where they're able to get the Guam IDs. Even our staff have experienced biases there, trying to help our unhoused people get their Guam IDs. And even they are kind of like rattled by it, by just like realizing that they're being treated differently. And so continuing to build awareness and inclusivity is a big thing that we're trying to build here on Guam.
Our next question from Charity is for Elida around the Orange County. So Charity wanted to ask if there are if you're aware and or utilizing the Indian Health Services.
So we have a partnership with CalOptima. In fact, there's a representative in the Orange County continuum of care. We have a seat where we are constantly talking about what are the funding opportunities and also what are the offerings. But I also, on the youth component, I was just involved in a visit to the Corps for foster youth hearings, and which was very inspiring. But the judge asked right away at the beginning if there were any ties to any tribal backgrounds, and then they were afforded and treated accordingly. So I've seen it through the youth, I've seen it through the adults, and then we've seen it through our county efforts as well. But that's wonderful that it's being recognized and shared.
Yes, we actually obtained our 501c3 status in October of last year, so it hasn't been very long, but we incorporated in 2019. And the actual concept of CARE was started when I was a student in 2017, because I started it as a student-led organization at my university. And now we're a full-fledged nonprofit, so it's pretty cool.
I had a question similar to that for Samantha. I was just curious about the structure of how the coalition that you work with in Guam operates, in that it's a coalition. So all the organizations you had shown on your last slide seems like that's a group of different nonprofits that all carry the weight of the services. I was just kind of curious if that's the case. That you have, it's like volunteer run, but it seems like it's also the organizations that are stepping up to do the services.
Yes. So yeah, like I mentioned, no staff, but all of those different logos that I had on the last slide are just a handful of the different nonprofits and government agencies that are part of the coalition. So being the continuum of care, we do the collaborative application with our housing agency here. And so there's only a handful of organizations that actually receive the COC funding. Others are, some of them also receive some of like the ESG, so the emergency solution grants, or the community development block grants that are through HUD. And then we have some veteran programs, but not everybody actually receives funding that's specifically towards assisting those who are unhoused. But yes, the organizations sort of come together because they understand that, for example, we have the victim advocates reaching out. They help people who are experiencing domestic and sexual abuse and violence. And so they understand that that is a contributing factor towards becoming unhoused. And so we work with a lot of these agencies in collaboration. So it's not just direct services, it's also the support services. And so, like I mentioned, we all kind of come together to kind of be part of the puzzle that helps to create a pretty broad network of supporting people.
I want to also invite you to follow up with our team afterwards